Hi. About a month ago, I posted a video on my channel called How the Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals Changed Star Kid. And it was essentially a video not criticizing the guy who didn't like musicals as a musical, but just addressing some of the changes in the Star Kid fandom that I've noticed in the year that it's been out. In that video, I made it very clear that I had never seen The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals, and today that changed. Okay, roll the clip. I'm about to watch The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals. This is a big deal for me. I don't even know if this part of the video is going to make it to the internet or not, but I'm about to watch this show. I'm really excited. Let's go. Well, it was definitely a horror comedy. Now, I want to assure you guys that this is in no way a fake video. I 100% just got done watching The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals for the first time a couple minutes ago, and I wanted to do this video this way because I want to do my most genuine, raw reaction to this musical. I want to share that with you guys. And I got some stuff to say. This experience that I had watching this show, it was wild. I'm sorry if I'm a little bit flustered if I stumble through this. This is my genuine raw reaction to The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals. And oh boy, this show is bonkers. Now, because I am an organized person and I would like there to be at least some structure to this video, I want to lay this out just a little bit. First, I'm going to just talk about the show as a whole, then I'm going to talk about the characters, then I'm going to talk about the songs, and then just some miscellaneous stuff at the end. The show as a whole. I understand the hype. I do. I understand the hype. I understand it, but it was a little over the top. Not the show, the hype. This show was definitely overhyped. I'm just gonna say that right now. I loved it. I really did. I really loved it, and I really enjoyed it a lot. It was insane. It was hilarious, and there were parts that were quite dramatic, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But I'm gonna level with you guys. If I didn't know and love Lauren, Joey, Jeff, and Jamie as much as I do, I don't think that I would love this musical as much as I did. I would have definitely still loved it and enjoyed it, but the fact that I love a lot of these actors really aided to me enjoying this show as much as I did, just because I would always kind of look at the background and be like, hey, look what Joey's doing, or look what Lauren's doing, or Jeff's performance is so great. I'm glad that this was not the first Star Kid show that I've seen. I mean, in fact, it's the last Star Kid show that I've seen because I've been a Star Kid fan for half a decade. But to anybody this was the first Star Kid show that you've seen, I am very curious about your experience now. Because this really isn't your typical Star Kid show. And yes, of course, they're allowed to evolve and allowed to change and become more professional, but this show, there were moments of it that didn't really feel like Star Kid to me. I'm gonna give you an example. The conflict between Bill, Corey Doris's character, and Alice, Mariah's character, when that reached its climax, that got to the point where I felt like they took it too far. Star Kid has had their fair share of tear-jerking moments, but the fact that Bill was gonna shoot himself and that his daughter went on this long tangent of how loving her dad is so hard and that she was the one who ended up killing him, I thought that really didn't feel like Star Kid. In that moment, that's what I was thinking. I only say that because usually they add a humorous element in their dramatic moments, but that moment in particular It felt like it belonged in another show, in another play, in another musical. But that's just me. So that was a moment that I personally, in my humble opinion, think that Star Kid went too far. I know that, again, they have had plenty of dramatic moments, but again, this is a parody musical, and it doesn't really seem to fit in with even Star Kid's dramatic moments. But don't let that steer you away from the point that I am making, that this is a great musical. It really, really is. I really, really loved it and enjoyed it. I had a great time, and it was very, very funny just how they parodied the idea of musicals and how strange they are conceptually. So that said, now you know that I love the show. Now I know that I love the show. Gosh, I've waited to love this show for a year. This is so huge for me. But now that you and I both know that I love the guy who didn't like musicals, let's now take a closer look at these characters in these songs. We're gonna start off with some of the characters. And again, this isn't gonna be a total in-depth analysis because raw reaction. I think it's appropriate to start off with Star Kid's new cast members that were first introduced in this musical, John Matheson and Mariah Rose Faith. How talented are they? I'm gonna start off with John, our Paul. I was really, really impressed with his performance for a few reasons. The first being how good he was at acting normal for a long, long while in the show. Because that's who his character was. He was the straight man. And this may sound ironic to some of y'all, but I, a lot of the times, am the most impressed with the straight man's performance because I've done a lot of theater in my day, and the kind of characters that I play are a lot of the times the weird one or the crazy one. I am never really the straight man because I am so bad at acting normal. Like, I can go about my business in my life being normal, but when I have to act normal for a performance, it ain't good. And John was really, really good at that. Paul kind of gave me a little Jim Halpert vibe just because of all of his reaction faces, him reacting to all of these goofballs and everything. And I just want to say his scene with Emma down in Professor Hitchens' bunker or whatever, the way he was looking at her, it definitely was, it was a great performance. So John's very talented and he's a great singer even if he didn't start singing until the end. Now Mariah Rose Faith. This woman is quite the powerhouse. She has a really, really good voice. I really enjoy hearing her sing. I mean, I've heard her sing before in Mean Girls and Heather stuff, but I've never heard her sing live. And wow, she's very, very, very talented. I wish that I could say more about her acting chops, but I feel like she didn't really have to do anything that hard in terms of acting. So I don't really know how to critique that. But gosh darn, she's talented. Her getting the role of Regina George was well-deserved. Well-deserved. My one main issue with Mariah's characters is nothing to do with her. It's just that all of her characters looked the same. Now that may sound weird because most of the Star Kids, yes, they did play a couple of different characters and none of them really changed their hair or their makeup. They just changed their clothes when they were turning into different characters. But Mariah's case is weirder to me because she wears a lot of makeup, which is totally fine, but it makes her very distinct. It makes her have a very distinct look, and it makes her stand out more. So when she's transitioning from one character to another, I think that this could very easily be the same person. I mean, usually it wasn't an issue, but at the beginning of the show, there was a moment with the, like, Beanie's character and Jeff Blim's Sam, there's like a scene with them together, and I couldn't tell if she was Alice or if she was Zoe. I think her name is Zoe, the barista. I didn't know which one she was. But yeah, if she was gonna wear that much makeup and have that like distinctive of a face, I would have liked to see her at least change her hairstyle or throw a wig on or a hat or something, just to differentiate a little bit more between her characters, the Save the Planet girl, Zoe, and Alice. But that's just my opinion. It's nothing against Mariah or how much makeup she wears. Like, she can do whatever she wants. Alright, now getting into some of the other characters that I want to talk about. We're gonna start off with Emma, Lauren Lopez. Lauren was amazing, as always. I knew that right from the first scene that she was in, that this was gonna be a great performance by her, and it absolutely was. And just the likability and the spunk of Emma, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to Emma, that really helped with me liking the character. I liked Emma a lot better than Zazalil. I couldn't relate to Zazalil really at all, I'm sorry. And there were a lot of moments where I did think that Zazalil was out of line and not doing the right thing, but I never really got that feeling with Emma, which is weird because Emma and Zazalil, they both have that, you know, kind of Lauren Lopez-y charm and, you know, some spunk, but Emma I thought was a lot better as a character. Now, in terms of Lauren's characters in general, there's just something that I would really, really like to address. Emma was great, and I loved her, and Lauren playing girls in general is great too. Taz is still one of my all-time favorites, and I hear she's playing a female villain in Black Friday, which I'm excited for, but I feel like nobody ever talks about this, and I really want to address it because it's something that I really, really miss. And I'm sure you know what's coming, but I really, really miss seeing her playing boys. I mean, Lauren playing girls has been iconic, but her playing boys has been such a huge part of her brand, I feel like, for the longest time, and now I feel like it's just gone. And I miss it so much. I don't know, I feel like nobody ever talks about how much they miss Lauren playing boys or why doesn't she do it anymore. I am wondering that. Cast Lauren as a boy, you cowards. That was just something that I wanted to address. I really, really miss seeing that. I miss seeing her as Draco, as the Sun, as Commissioner Gordon. She played Frodo too, which I'd love to see more of, but that was a long, long time ago. Brian Holden was my age at that point when they did Lord of the Rings, I think. That's weird. I don't know how common of an emotion this is among Star Kid fans, but I really liked Ted's character. He was hilarious. I know he was such a jerk, but I loved him. Ted was probably the character that made me laugh the most throughout this show. I mean, Professor Higgins was the character that definitely made me go, like, the most, but I think that Ted was really the character that made me genuinely laugh the most in this show. He had just some of the best one-liners, and every time you thought that he was gonna do something sentimental or nice, he totally just backs down on it. It's kind of like Seinfeld vibes a little bit. I mean, Joey has always been one of my favorites. Always. Ever since I first saw AVPM all those years ago, so I'm sure that aids to it a little bit too. But even so, I'm just gonna give you some examples of just a couple of times that Ted made me laugh really, really hard. When Paul first came into the office after La-di-da-da day or whatever, he said, "You mean it was like a flash mob?" And then Paul's like, yeah. And right out of the blue, Ted's like, "Well, did you get a video of it?" Like, it was like the most obvious thing ever. It's like, okay, you want a video of the flash mob? And then after that, he's like, "Ah, Paul, you're not good for anything." I don't know, I like his dynamic with Paul. I love how much I like the banter between the two of them. That said, I also love the banter between Ted and Emma. And that's just something that I love about a few Star Kid shows, actually, is they create this weird banter or hating relationship between Lauren and Joey's characters. Which is so ironic, by the way, because Rich Pez. Hey, whether it's a friendship or a relationship, you gotta admit they care very, very deeply for each other in real life. So I just think it's funny every time their characters don't. When Paul first brings Emma to the trash cans and all of his coworkers pop out, and Ted is just like, what in the world is she doing here? You brought the wrong barista. And they kind of had that, like, F you moment. Other examples of this running gag, I guess, are in Firebringer when Zazalil says, oh no, that guy's just an outsider. He can die, it's fine, he's not part of our tribe. And, of course, in the Harry Potter musical series, Ron and Draco's rivalry is one of my favorite dynamics in any Star Kid show. Probably my favorite. Honestly. Maybe besides Quirrell and Voldemort. I don't know, I just love it when Lauren and Joey pretend to hate each other in the Star Kid shows, because I just know full well that they are far from that in real life. They love each other. I didn't say in what way they love each other, but they do love each other. Okay, Bill's character, I think, was another straight man, but he had a much more conflict, much more personal conflict than Paul's character. And it really kind of broke my heart. I didn't know that Corey Doris had those acting chops. Watching this man fall apart in the few scenes where he was the quintessential character, I really was very moved by Corey's performance. He was a father who loved his daughter more than anything and just wanted what was best for her. But I really, really wish that we would have seen more of him and more of that. That whole thing seemed very unresolved to me, which is, I guess, a flaw in the show that I'm gonna point out, is that Bill's storyline seemed unfinished, it seemed unresolved, it seemed a little rushed, honestly. And I wish that he was given the attention that a lot of these other characters were given. Because I really, really liked Bill's character, and I wanted to see more of it, and I wanted to see him get his happy ending. Because really, no character deserves it more than his. So, thanks, Corey. Your character, Bill, definitely was the purest in the show. 100% hands down. Jamie. Oh boy. Jamie's characters were obviously hilarious, because she is hilarious, and she is such a good actor, such a good character actor. Not to say that she's not a great lead actress too, because she is. She's just queen. Charlotte, her most prominent character, was hilarious. I loved her conflicting feelings of marriage with Sam and having an affair with her counselor or with Ted. I love how much of a mess she was. Like, clearly this whole affair business or this whole marriage business, it definitely was taking a toll on her mental health. I mean, she was a wreck. Didn't realize that she had the shaking hand with the cigarette or not pouring the sugar in the coffee. She's like, oh, I didn't even realize. And Jamie's voice is just, she's such a good singer. Such a good singer. All right, almost done with the characters. Just two more. Jeff Blim's characters. Oh my gosh. I said this in my Twisted video, he just gets it. He gets the comedic timing, the comedic faces that he has to make. He's just all around has such great stage presence and such a good voice, by the way. This man is so talented. Oh my gosh. He is so good at the kind of character he plays, like that crazy character. He's so good at it. And I am so glad. To Paul's boss, Mr. Davidson, I think, to General McNamara, to Sam. He's just so good at playing a psychopath. All right, I wanted to bring down the house with Robert Mannion. Professor Higgins, man. He will most definitely go down in history as one of Star Kid's most iconic characters. 100% without a doubt. That man is bonkers. I mean, I really did love him. And the first moment that he came on stage and was like, acting all, oh my gosh, Professor Hitchensy, I'm not gonna lie to you, I got mad David Hyde Pierce, Niles Crane vibes from that little bit. And I thought to myself, I'm gonna love this character. Because if you don't know, Frasier is one of my favorite shows of all time, and Niles Crane from Frasier is my favorite character in probably any sitcom. And that is a big statement for me. Like, huge. Insane. So, to get Niles Crane vibes from any character, any person, it's a high honor in my book. And Professor Hitchens gave me some of those vibes. Granted, Hitchens is more crazy than Niles, but it still... It drew a line between those characters that connected them for me. And that's great. One of my favorite moments in the entire show is when Lauren and Joey are tied to the chair, and Professor Hitchens is like, I had this first love that was burning inside of me. And that love, and then he pulls the blanket off the piano, is musical theater. It's like, yes. I know that Lauren was like, oh god, no. But I was like, oh yes. Let's go. And obviously that whole sequence, one of the best parts of the show. Okay, next part, I'm going to do a quick gloss over of the songs, and I'm not going to go too much in depth into any of the songs because, let's be honest, I will probably end up making a video ranking these songs where I will go more in depth into them, like I did for Twisted, and I will put that link right there. I've literally only heard these songs once because I just watched the show, and again, this is my raw reaction literally from today. Alright, The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals, the opening, it was very catchy, a little bit repetitive, but ultimately there's not a ton to say about this song other than it was a good opening. La-di-da-da-day. This song was very smartly done in how it introduced Paul and the rest of us to this new musical world. And I love how the song isn't really about anything other than that it's a la-di-da-da-day. I think that was very clever because la-di-da-da is a common, you know, saying in show tunes. So instead of saying it's a good day or it's a day, it's a la-di-da-da-day. What do you want, Paul? Jeff's performance is comedic gold as always, and I love how Paul makes the point that is ever so common in musicals and just plays. This is really personal. Who is this for? Why are you telling me this? Cup of roasted coffee. I did not expect that dark turn at the end. That was pretty wild. You Tied Up My Heart. This song started off with huge You Will Still Be Mine from Waitress vibes, but the end. Yikes, wow. Just stick your hand right in her, pull her organs out. I wasn't expecting that. Join Us and Die. This song was very catchy. I remember my attention being grabbed right away when this song started. I love the all you gotta do is before the chorus. The homage to one of Star Kid's most iconic villain songs, Kick It Up a Notch from Starship. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but if it was, I love it. Not Your Seed. Mariah's voice is actually angelic. I cannot believe her voice. But again, this song, the scene following it, I remember in that moment thinking, this doesn't feel like Star Kid to me. Show-stopping number. Wow. Just wow. This is the song that I hear most of the hype of in the last year before seeing The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals. I understand it now. Definitely. Robert Mannion. I have no words. I have no words. It was quite a show-stopping number though. And just a little side note, can I just say how much I love Ted sitting in the chair, and he just got more and more into it as the song went along. Like, Ted is me. Like, he starts off just kind of like bopping his head in the background, and alternatively the entire time Emma is just like, please stop, you have to stop, we're gonna die, and Ted's like, yeah, like, keep going, man, go for it. I thought that was a really funny bit. Let It Out. This song is wild. I think that this is for sure one of my favorite songs in the show, one of the songs that I really enjoyed the most. I love those songs in musicals that are more powerful, and Let It Out I think is definitely one of the songs in this musical that has the most power. I love Paul's little moment of his singing. You could see in his face his conflict, and I love that. And the finale, I can't really comprehend it. But I guess the finale could be seen as a bit of a parallel to the plot of the show, how it kind of starts off with just one person being weird and singing, and then it turns into 2 people, then 3, and then before you know it, everybody is singing and dancing, and Emma, who we are now seeing the show through the lens of now, is totally freaked out. This show ended very abruptly, I'm just gonna say. I was left kind of unable to comprehend what had just happened. I like the way it ended. Not every musical has to be, you know, tied up in a big bow and everything's perfect at the end, but this show, it was wild. Thank you so much to those of you who have made it this far. I know that I was a little bit rambly, but again, this is my genuine reaction, and I wanted to do it this way. I didn't want to watch it and then wait a couple of days and do it. I wanted you guys to see my most genuine, raw reaction, what I really think, like, upon just seeing it. Now, just a few final thoughts before we wrap up today. I rank a lot of things on this channel, and as you may or may not know, I don't consider my favorite of something and the best of something to be the same thing. Now, this might not be the best show of the last decade, but it's my favorite show of the last decade. And yes, I do believe that there is a difference there. For example, my favorite song in Twisted is Happy Ending, but I believe the best song in Twisted is Twisted. I said that in my Twisted songs video. And I've heard a couple of people say that The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals is not their favorite Star Kid musical, but they believe that it's the best done. And while The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals was amazing, it's not my favorite. My favorite will always be probably the AVPs and Twisted, just because they're very near and dear to my heart. But I also don't think that it's the best. I think that it's probably one of the best in quality, but even as far as quality goes, I still think that it's probably on the same level as, like, Starship or Twisted. The character development in The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals was definitely better than in Firebringer. There were more characters that you got to care about besides just Jamila and Zazalil. But again, it could have been better, I personally think. In shows like Starship, you literally find yourself loving every single one of the main cast and the supporting cast. And The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals, you love the characters, but at the same time, you don't really get to know them all too well. You just really know their main aspect of their character, I would say. I mean, obviously with the exception of Paul and Emma and Professor Higgins. And yeah, to an extent, I get it. It's only a 2-hour show, whereas shows like Starship or AVPM S or SY are like 3 hours, and the characters, you do feel closer to them because you spend a whole another hour with them. But I don't know, maybe this show should have been another hour long. But then the pacing would be off. It it's just difficult. It's difficult. It's a difficult thing to call, and I did not work on this show, and I'm sure it was very hard to pull off. And they did a great job. This show was crazy. It was fun. It was dramatic at some parts, and it was scary, and I loved it. After a year of hearing this insane hype for this show, I can now say I love the guy who didn't like musicals. It feels good. Thank you so much.